Hi there, here we are at part 3 of the Creation Wildflowers acrylic painting that I'm doing, and this is the really fun part. I'm going to add in a lot of texture and colour with the flowers using a palette knife and the paintbrush. If you don't have a palette knife, remember you can always use a little cut up strip of an old credit card or even a kitchen butter knife, whatever you have at hand. Hope you enjoy this part. I really enjoyed it. Let's get cracking.
Grasses back here, which are going to be a lot of yellow ochre. If I had my lovely grass brush I've got at home, that would be fine. I don't, so I'm just going to try some neat to start with yellow ochre. And pull it up and down through the edge here. So some of it will blend with the grasses underneath, the greens underneath, which are not really dry yet, giving me a range of grasses there. Now the thing you can do with this too is pull back into it afterwards if you want to with the palette knife. So I can put on all this colour, then I can take the sharp bit of the palette knife and just scratch back into it if I want some finer grasses and some more detail. And that's what I can do down here when I've put the grasses on. I can scratch back in over the top of the darks. So at the moment, just pulling up these yellow ochre colours over the top of the greens. Love to see the grasses emerging there. So I've got some redder grasses coming in amongst those other ones, and I'll put in some greener grasses as well. Now I can start pulling these all the way through. Now as I come further towards the front, I'll be making longer pulls with the brush so I get some taller grasses. And I can vary it, I can use the side of the brush as well. And here you can see I'm using some thicker. I can put my palette knife in like so, and use that to pull down grasses, or I can use my palette knife to pull down quite a lot in one swathe. So I get some thicker, more textured grasses as I come forward. Put them down and then pull through them. But I'm kind of liking using the brush at the moment. I'm picking up some greens to put in as well. I don't want it to just be yellows, and I can use this, the side of the brush, the flat tip of the brush rather than the side of it as well, just to scrape in some different sorts of grasses. Remember, I'm going to be putting in all those flowers as well. This is just to get the grass underpainting going, and then I'll pop in more grasses. So I'm getting a sense of lighter, dry grasses as I come forward, but I also want some yellower. Instead of the yellow ochre, I want some cooler greens as well as some warmer green grasses. So by mixing a bit of the lemony yellow in with that lighter green, I can get some cooler green grasses as well. I'm just going to keep cutting away at this till I've covered that whole area with grass. Where the poppies are going to be, I'm going to make some greener grass. Putting in some green grass bits there. Yeah, a bit more of the lighter green and that light yellow. Oops, went a bit overboard, but I've still got all those yellow flowers to go, so I'm not too worried about that. But I'll use both my yellows. So I'll put the other deeper yellow over there. Here I go, just mixing up a bit more of the green grasses here. And I'm going to use the palette knife a little bit here. You can see how I get such a nice lot of texture here, and it's just going to simulate the poppy leaves and stems there. This area where the yellow is going to be needs to have a bit of a darker underpainting. So I'm going back in and making it a nice dark sort of green underpainting in there, right where all that yellow is going to be. Make it quite dark down the base there. And I will put in a bit more of the darker purpley base down here as well. Just reinstating it. I did put some in before, but I don't feel it's enough, so I'm just putting a little bit more of that in. And you can adjust your painting as you go to get the look that you're after. Putting some of this a little bit more, a little bit flatter there. Just getting a little bit of brown colour there. Okay, so that's going in. Now I'm getting back to this I'm putting some back here. Little bits, patches of it over here as well, where I'm going to put a few more poppies. In amongst the lighter colours. Over here, I'm going to have some quite light ground covers. So I'm just going to start smearing some of this over here where the ground colours are going to go. And I will be putting some rocks in there as well, but I just want to get the setting for the ground covers. But also I'm going to put in a bit of this as well and just mix it up a little bit. Putting in a little bit of that purple for some little bits of stone showing amongst it, and that'll give it a little bit of lightness too. It's a little bit of the gravelly soil showing through, and that will tie in with this colour up here. So you notice I'm putting it in a kind of zigzag fashion up there, so that I've got some of that colour down here. And coming across and up through there. I'm going to pop in that little bit of a shadow under there now with my palette knife, so I get a nice straight edge. Bit of shadow under there. Oops, a bit of shadow there. Get rid of that, my hand's a little bit shaky. I'm just pulling up some of the grasses into the edge of that church. Patting on a little bit of those greens for the poppies, that ground cover down there, it was quite yellow, so it's just going to get little hits of this and the other yellow for little bits of shadow amongst it. Just really lovely, lots of wildflowers here. And what I'm doing is just trying to replicate in a very impressionist way the kind of colours that I saw and the types of shrubs that I saw. I don't know what a lot of their names are. Of course I know what poppies are, and I know what broom and so on are, but I'm just going to put a little patch of the yellow back here too. A little patch of broom back here. But some of them I really don't know what they're called, and so it's really just me trying to remember the shapes of them. So that's the yellow ones going in. Now I've got to put all the yellow ones on this broom here, and that's a more lemony yellow. So what I'm going to do is take that yellow and add a bit of white to it, so it's not quite so. I need a fair bit of white, not quite so bright, and we'll start off with that in a little. And then I'll be going back in with some brighter yellow as well. I'm just dotting this all over the place now, and I could use a bigger brush or a smaller brush. I'm wanting to keep it fairly loose, so I'm trying to use a bigger brush to help me do that. I'm going to start introducing some of the brighter yellows into it. And just with the corner of the brush. And you can see how that dark underpainting I'm putting now is coming in and creating the shadowed areas in it. Just take a little bit of that neat yellow now. Dot around. More of it as I get down here because it's shadowed, so it's not getting quite so sunlit. So I can put in the darker yellow. Just putting a little bit in here as well because I didn't. It was too centred, so I just wanted to move it over a little bit, so it's not smack in the middle. So even though that part's in the middle, I've now moved it across and made another one that overlaps with it, so it's not dominating the middle so much. A little bit lighter dibs and dabs in, a little bit lighter bits back there. Okay, so I've got some nice yellows going through it now. I could even take a small amount of that very dark yellow and just beef those up a little bit there with a little bit more of the darker yellow. Just so I've got a little bit of variety of yellows in there. The rooster's crowing away outside here because he thinks it's so dark he thinks it's just morning. Okay. So quite a lot of those in. Now what I want to do is get on to some of those poppies. The poppies I'm going to start off with a mix of alizarin and the orange. And just really pop them in like so. Just dabs. Not really worrying too much about their exact shape at the moment. Really just dabbing it on. Making sure I've got some bigger ones. Look, that's a square. That's ridiculous, Lindy. And trying to get those shapes to be nicely variable. I'm going to put on some more bits of sunlight on them now. And that's just popping some straight orange onto them. Some of them are going to have the little black centres. Pop a bit of straight orange on. Now I could equally as well do this with the palette knife, so I could just pick up some darker yellow. And I'm going to, darker red. I'm going to do this for some of them because I get a better, a nice chunky impasto effect without actually having any thickening paste in there. And I'm going to make them various sizes and lots of overlapping ones as I go further back. And I'll be taking some through into here, and they'll just get a lot more, a lot more detail, a lot less detail as they go through. They need to overlap with some of these other plants as well, and the flowers, so that we add some layers in. And a few stray ones that have wandered over here, which will all help to connect the various parts of the painting together. And by just moving your knife around, you can see that you get different kind of effects. A few little stray ones over here amongst these. They've got to be quite small, so I'm just scraping those across to give an idea of quite a lot, but without any detail. Make sure I add in a few little bits of just the orange. And here I want to have some deeper bits of red amongst the orange. So I've got some highlights and shadows going on. They need their little black centres. So I'm just taking a little smidge of black, the tip of my, and giving some of those poppies a black centre. Some are facing hard to get anything. Some are full on and you get a lot of it. Some you can't see any. Right, I'm getting to the fiddly finishing bits now. I'm not going to put much in there, I'm going to leave that fairly bare. But over here in the mountain, I just want it to be a little bluer perhaps. So I'll take a tiny bit of my blue up here. Maybe a little bit warmer even. Sometimes you don't get exactly the colour you're after. That's more what I'm after. It's the sunlit rocky effect there, so the white is quite good. The sky might be getting a little wash of it, of warmth over it in a moment, some yellow ochre perhaps. And I just need to fix up the edges here of this church. That needs to come back there because the roof needs to overhang it a bit, so. And then by shifting around that wall, I've shifted this around a little bit, so you just have to keep being aware of stuff like that. So that should be the centre of that little tiny bit. So I just had to move it a little bit. And then that's better. What it needs now is its tiny little bit. Now I wondered if I bring myself a really small brush. Because it would be very helpful now to have a very small brush to do the little bell tower with. And I don't think I did. So I'll just make do with this one, but be quite careful with it. So just taking a small amount of white and putting in the bell tower there. Remodelling this at the back. I might make that slightly warmer too. Let it all dry a little bit. So I've got the bell tower on. The roof just needs to have a bit more brightness on it, so I'm going to get some yellow ochre. And then some orange mixed with a bit of white. That's pretty good. It needs a little darker inside on that bell tower. So I just have to put a little bit of shadow in there. That's better. And then bring it right down to sit top of the church. Okay. I'm just making it not quite so purple by putting a bit of yellow ochre into the mix there. And it needs to have a little bit more variation and definition in those bushes there. So just tapping those on with a bit of a brush now. And I'm going to add a little bit of that up into here as well. A bit of a tap of the brush to lighten it up slightly back in there. It's a little bit too dark. So I'm just putting a few light areas in. That still needs fixing behind there. I'd forgotten about that. So I'm going to add in some dark green because that will contrast nicely with the orange roof. So you can see now that I'm putting that in, how much more that bell tower and the roof are going to stand out against it. I had a bit of a slip there of my thing, so I'm just going to fix that, and that's probably going to get a little bit of lightness on the top as well. But correspondingly, a little bit more darkness underneath. So it's all about contrast of light and dark. That orange is getting a touch of yellow added into it. I think I'll do it with a palette knife again though. That orange is getting a touch of yellow added into it. I think I'll do it with a palette knife again though. A little yellow ochre wash there, warming up the sky. Slightly. And we'll say it's done. Oops, don't cool down the sky by dragging some of that green into it. Okay, it's going to get a little signature down here, and it's going to be with that, oops, don't cool down the sky by dragging some of that green into it. Okay, it's going to get a little signature down here, and it's going to be with that poppy colour. I haven't got my signature brush, so it might just get today a little, see how we go with this one. Ooh, I might have to wait till
Hi there, here we are at part 3 of the Creation Wildflowers acrylic painting that I'm doing, and this is the really fun part. I'm going to add in a lot of texture and colour with the flowers using a palette knife and the paint